Good morning, everyone. Let us start today's program in connection with celebration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav to commemorate 75th anniversary of independence of our nation by paying homage to all the martyrs and freedom fighters who dedicated their lives for the independence of our country. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation and the National Statistical Office, Field Operations Division, Headquarters, New Delhi, for giving Regional Office, Thiruvananthapuram, an opportunity in participating Ministry's one-year-long program in connection with the celebrations of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. The National Statistical Office, Field Operations Division, Regional Office, Thiruvananthapuram, is organizing one-year-long program to create awareness about the role and achievements of NSO. The events conducted throughout the year will be focusing on roles of NSO, data sources of official statistics, and thematic discussions on data revelations. The celebration of this office was inaugurated on 16th August 2021, the day after last year's Independence Day, by organizing a one-day webinar which focused NSO's role in national development. In this connection, we have also conducted one awareness creation program at St. Teresa's College, Ernakulam, which was led by the SRO Kochi team. Today, we have gathered here again to celebrate the proud moments of achievements of NSO, coincidentally on the day after this year's Republic Day. The National Statistical Office, the erstwhile CSO and NSSO, established in 1950 and 1951, is playing an important role in nation's development by making available important official statistics required for the planning and development of the nation. Today, we are going to conduct a data dissemination webinar, which is being organized in a mixed mode to discuss the results of the first nationwide 𝐴𝐸 survey. The theme of today's webinar was chosen as 𝐴𝐸 survey, mainly for three reasons. One, the TUS 2019 is a great achievement of NSO, being the first nationwide 𝐴𝐸 survey which collected time utilization data from households. Two, the 𝐴𝐸 survey brought out important and interesting results about the patterns of life and unpaid work in our country. The TUS results need to be discussed widely to identify and understand the data revelations so that it can find an important place in planning and policy making. A recent order of the Supreme Court recognizes the unpaid work done by women at home in the eternity. Hearing a dispute over insurance amount due to the survivors of a deceased couple, the man was a professional and the woman a homemaker. The court observed that the notional income from unpaid housework by women should factor in their labor as well as their sacrifices. The apex court then revised the insurance amount upwards. With these introductory words, let me do my responsibility. Professor Dr. Sunil Mani, Director, Center for Development Studies, Thiruvananthapuram, is with us today to inaugurate the event. Dr. Sunil Mani sir is a well-known academician and author of many books and papers related to economics. In spite of his busy schedule, sir has agreed to inaugurate the program and enlighten the gathering. On behalf of NSO RO Thiruvananthapuram, I extend a warm welcome to you, sir. Dr. Bivas Chowdhury, Additional Director General, Field Operations Division, and the team headquarters have joined us virtually. Also, we have with us officers from Zonal Office, Bangalore, various regional offices all over India, including RO Kozhikode. Officers belonging to Indian Statistical Service posted at various ministries have also joined us virtually via WebEx link and YouTube live streaming. May I welcome all of you to this event and thank you all for the great support and encouragement. We have with us Sri Sajeev PP, Director DES, Technical and Administrative Head of the Department of Economics and Statistics, Government of Kerala. The state DS has been extending all support to NSO activities in Kerala, and I am extremely happy that Director DS has joined us today for this program. I welcome you, sir, to the program today. Sri P.C. Mohanan, sir, the Chairman, National Statistical Commission, Kerala, has also joined us virtually and has agreed to share the concluding remarks. I welcome you, sir, to this event. As you are aware, in this program, we are having eminent speakers discussing on various topics related to the results of Time Use Survey of India. We are fortunate to have speakers from academics and official statistics to highlight the findings of the TUS survey and for discussing the data revelations. We have with us today Professor Neeta, Professor and former Acting Director at the Center for Women's Development Studies, New Delhi. Dr. Srirupa, a research consultant at the ISST, Delhi. Dr. Sindhumol MR, Associate Professor and Head in Charge, Department of Statistics, University of Madras. Sri Sandeep Kumar Sadhu, Deputy Director, NSO SDRD. Sri Shirke Srinivas Vijay, Deputy Director, NSO RO Pune. Sri A. Ganeshan, Assistant Director, NSO RO Thiruvananthapuram. And Dr. Subhash, Senior Statistical Officer, SRO Kollam, as the resource persons. I thank you all for taking time to join us today and for agreeing to share your valuable research ideas based on Time Use Survey. Let me extend a warm welcome to all our resource persons. Today's event is being widely viewed and participated by the academicians, students and researchers from various colleges, universities and institutes of Kerala and outside the state. Let me extend hearty welcome to all of you. Many central and state government officials have also joined us virtually. Also, all the officials from RO Thiruvananthapuram have joined us in a mixed mode. I welcome all of you to this event. The CDIT, Center for Development of Managing Technology of Government of Kerala, is extending technical and infrastructure support to us for this event. They have been coordinating with us for ensuring the successful conduct of this webinar. I welcome all the representatives of CDIT to this event. Let me conclude my words once again welcoming all the distinguished guests and participants to this national level webinar being organized by NSO Thiruvananthapuram in connection with the celebrations of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Thank you very much. Jai Hind. We have a video message from Dr. Bivas Chowdhury, ADG FOD. Sir could not join us physically and virtually also due to his busy schedule. So let us hear to Sir. Please play the video message from Dr. Bivas Chowdhury, ADG FOD.
Namaskar. I am glad to join the national level webinar on time use survey data organized by the Regional Office of Field Operations Division of Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, Government of India, Thiruvananthapuram. It's an honor for the office that Dr. Sunil Mani, Director and RBI Professor for Center for Development Studies, Thiruvananthapuram, has kindly agreed to inaugurate the webinar. Over the last 3 decades, a number of developed countries have been conducting time use surveys with increasing frequency. The United States has been doing one annually since 2003. Australia conducted its full-scale national survey in 1992. Canada has been doing it since 1961. Germany, Austria, and Israel have also conducted this survey. The NSS report, Time Use Survey, is the first such pan-India survey conducted. It's a sample survey conducted between January and December 2019. A time use survey measures the amount of time people spend doing various activities such as paid work, childcare, volunteering, and socializing. The primary objective of a time use survey is to measure participation of men and women in paid and unpaid activities. Time use survey is an important source of information on the time spent in unpaid caregiving activities, volunteer work, unpaid domestic service, producing activities of household members. It also provides information on time spent on learning, leisure activities, self-care activities. The findings of these surveys are deemed to be helpful in drafting policies on poverty, gender equity, and human development. The time use data will definitely help researchers and policymakers to look deep into societal pattern. I congratulate all authors whose papers are accepted in this webinar, and I hope that this webinar will definitely enrich the knowledge content on this issue. I appreciate and thank Madam Sunita Bhaskar, DDG and Regional Head of Regional Office Thiruvananthapuram, and her team for this initiative when entire nation has geared up to celebrate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. This technical discourse will be a befitting way to celebrate Mahotsav for an office under National Statistical System. Wish you all the best. Jai Hind.
Thank you, ADG sir. Let me now request Dr. Sunil Mani, Director, RBA Professor, Center for Development of Studies, Thiruvananthapuram, to inaugurate the webinar.
First of all, I thank the National Statistical Office, Regional Office here in Trivandrum for giving me a chance to come and participate in this national level webinar on time use survey. As Dr. 𝐓𝐢𝐬𝐴 Chowdhury has just now mentioned, this is the first time that India has been doing this very important survey, which will allow us to have inputs for informed policy making in different areas. He mentioned, for instance, gender equity, human development, and poverty. And I would add on to that list about some informed discussions on the knowledge economy, which we all refer to these days, and how leisure time is used in general. I believe this is a very important survey, and it is already spawning a fair amount of scholarly inquiry. And you refer to two scholars, Dr. Neeta and Srirupa, both alumni of the Center for Development Studies, who have actually already done a paper, and they are going to do that, present the results of that survey this afternoon. And I must also refer to a full-length book, which is actually written based on the time use survey by a scholar based in Trichy at the Government College of Engineering, Trichy. He has just completed the data analysis using the survey, and I'm sure he would share the findings of his book with Madam Sunita Bhaskar and her office later in the year. Okay. Now, I have not read this important study, which is a cross-section study covering 2019 and looking at how Indians spent their time, as Dr. 𝐓𝐢𝐴 Chowdhury has said, paid and unpaid work, leisure and socializing, etc., and so on. Now, I believe that apart from the policy inputs, that the study can provide, it can also inform some of the important debates that have been taking place in India. For instance, one debate I may refer to, which is basically the labor force participation rates for women and the fact that it is actually coming down. Of course, I'm not saying that you can answer the debate using this time use survey for the simple reason that we are referring to both the level and trend when you are talking about labor force participation rates for women. This being a cross-section study, we can only talk about the level, and in fact, it gives you a fair amount of information on how to inform some of the hypotheses that has been put forward to explain the declining labor force participation rates for women in India, because it's one of the lowest in the world at the moment. Okay. So I think from that point of view, I think this survey can actually give us a really good inputs for informing some of the hypotheses that has been put forward to explain that. And another issue that I would flag and place on the table is about the knowledge economy. How little time that Indians are actually spending on learning, which is actually revealed by the time use survey, is something which is very important and to be taken into account by the policymakers. Because as we know, in a knowledge-based economy, learning is lifelong. And if you are actually stopping, or spending very little time on learning, and I think that's going to be a very deleterious, effect in creating and maintaining a knowledge-based economy. And the next aspect, which I thought I would flag, is also the use of new technologies for socializing and communication. Now, I don't think the time use survey goes into the details of these new technologies, but we all know that mobile phones and internet is basically used for communication and leisure, because the survey actually shows that fair amount of time is spent surprisingly more by men rather than by women on leisure. Okay, and this is something which is very revealing for the simple reason that we all thought that in Asian societies, leisure is basically a luxury. We all have to work very hard throughout the day because most of the Indians actually work in the informal sector. So they have to work long hours and so on. Okay, and even for women who are actually spending a lot of time in unpaid care work within the home, long hours. So where is the time for leisure? This is something which has been, what one has been, but the counterintuitive which the survey has actually pointed out is that the Indians spend, relatively speaking, a fair amount of time on leisure. Okay, and that also gives us some very good informed guesses about the use of new technologies in this leisure, in the management of this leisure. And there I would say that there is an interesting study by Payal Arora, which was published several years ago, almost like 2018. It's a Harvard University Press book, which it's called The Next Billion Users. And it talks about how Indians use internet. What are the purposes for which Indians use internet? And you might be quite surprised to know that this study, which is based actually on a very detailed inquiry in Tamil Nadu, and actually shows that a lot of the time that the internet is used for is for non-productive purposes. Now, I need not elaborate on what these non-productive purposes are. And actually, this study was also supported by another detailed inquiry by Anant Kamath, who now works at the National Institute for Advanced Studies, again an alumni of CDS. And he has actually shown that much of the time that Indians, especially in the peri-urban areas of Bangalore, they spent for instance, the mobile phone and mobile internet, because most of the Indians access the internet through the mobile phone. So the two are used simultaneously, and this is actually not for productive purposes. This has got very important implications for instance, on productivity, especially in work, because if you are too much leisure loving, and if you are using all the new technologies not for constructive purposes, but rather for things which can be, which need not be done for, I think that calls for some policy action. Although I'm not entirely clear as to how that can be managed. Okay, and another disquieting finding from the survey is that Indians do not have much appetite for unpaid volunteer work. And this finding is extremely important because with climate change, what we are going to have is series of very unpredictable weather events, which can also be very devastating. For instance, this floods, and all kinds of unpredictable weather events, abnormal rainfall, cyclones, and so on. So during this time, unpaid volunteer work is very helpful in mitigating some of the negative effects of these abnormal weather events. And if Indians do not have an appetite for unpaid volunteer work, that's really bad news. And in fact, that is quite surprising also, because if you look at the historical experience in Kerala, Keralites typically, although I do not make out a strong case for Keralites for everything, okay, but at least in the case of unpaid volunteer work, the record of Keralites is actually very good. Take for instance the 2018 mega floods of 2018, and the way unpaid volunteer work was very clearly documented across the state. And you see that even in the 2019 and also in the recent events of landslides and so on, which took place in different parts of the state. Okay, so there can be regional variations also in this. This is something which I think is very interesting for analysts to look at later on. So in other words, what I'm trying to tell you is that the time use survey conducted by the NSSO is actually a treasure house of a fair amount of data, which is going to inform and which is going to be a major area where lots of very systematic inquiries are going to be done. I already referred to this full-length book, which is waiting to be published already. I mean, it's just about, your survey came out in 2020, already a full-length book is written, and I'm sure several scholarly papers are also being written all over the country. So I would again congratulate the National Sample Survey for doing this wonderful study. And as Dr. Bivas Chaudhary has said, and I hope this is going to be an annual affair, or at least with some frequency, so that we will have a detailed longitudinal studies, which will also be very helpful in understanding how Indians spend their time. And I must also remember that I was involved in inaugurating the survey way back in the December of 2018. And I'm so happy that the survey has been so successfully completed, and something like a 2,000-page report has been published, and its detailed unit level data are actually available for researchers to do. So all congratulations to the National Sample Survey Organization for this wonderful work which they have done. And I think this is a very fitting tribute to the 75th anniversary of India's independence, which we are celebrating. So thank you very much. And thank you once again for giving me a chance. And I'm delighted to inaugurate the
Dr. Sunil Mani has been a constant supporter of NSO Trivandrum. Thank you, sir, for your enriching words about the possible ways of using the TUS treasure house of data.
Okay, thank you very much.
Now, let us view a short video presenting NSO Trivandrum officers engaging in various survey activities of this region. Please play the video. a glimpse of NSO activities. Hope you could all view the short video. It was depicting various schemes being done by the officials of NSO. The data warriors of NSO who are performing the field responsibilities, facing all the challenges, including the present COVID-19, deserves recognition, encouragement, and support. A photo e-journal to represent the visuals from the field, all contributed by the field officers of NSO Trivandrum, is being released on this occasion as a recognition to all the field staff of NSO Trivandrum. Let me share that. to us directly from the field. I congratulate all my field team for doing their service, doing the data collection work, facing all the challenges that we face in our day-to-day life. Once again, I appreciate the contributions of all the field staff engaged in data collection work throughout the year. Now, let us start the discussions on a time use survey. For the first session, let me invite Dr. Subhash R., Senior Statistical Officer of NSO SRO Kollam. He will be discussing the topic relevance of time use survey and its perspectives in India. Dr. Subhash is having a very extensive service in NSO, 21 years of experience. And he has done his PhD on a topic which is very much related to this time use survey also. Dr. Subhash, please carry on. Subhash? Subhash, please unmute yourself. Subhash?
Okay, madam.
Yes, now we are unmuted. Please start.
Good morning, all. Our respected ADG, sir, DDG, madam, respected Deputy Director, Assistant Director, and the of CDS, Dr. Sunil Mani, sir, and other all dignitaries. I am hereby starting an introductory talk to the time use survey. And as far as this survey is concerned, it is the first extensive survey. It is very important for the Indian economy as a whole. Particularly, it is very relevant for the Kerala economy. I will sort out all these points in the coming slides. But the topic of the today's topic about this time use survey is the relevance of time use survey and its perspectives in India. As far as the time use survey is concerned, I think the slide is not moving.
Odd. If now it is moving. It is okay.
It's okay.
Working.
As far as the time use survey is concerned, the first architect of this time use survey is the Hungarian sociologist Alexander Salai. And he is an architect of the International Comparison of Time Use organized in 1965. And then and the subsequent development of the International Association of Time Use Research. And in 1995, the World Summit on Social Development in Copenhagen, the fourth World Conference of Women in Beijing, all stressed the obstacles to improve the policies on gender equity because of the absence of data on women's contribution on unenumerated work or unpaid work. And the UN Development Report Office also highlighted the issue of valuing women's work in the 1995 report. But before this, we can see the unpaid activities having its significance in the historical significance also. For instance, our father of the nation, whenever he is going for a talk, he will reach the spot 1 hour before and clean the toilets and public toilets and public cleaning was the insightful things taught by the father of our nation. And his disciple, J.C. Kumarappa, who wrote an important book, The Economy of Permanence. In that, he is striving for an economy of service only. The last resort of an economic system is based on service, that is unpaid, and it is not purely based on monetary issues. But this is the an important background of this time use survey in our country. Further, as far as the time use survey is concerned, John Ruskin, we can see the work of John Ruskin, which was influenced by Mahatma Gandhi also. In 1860 itself, John Ruskin recognized the importance of housewives' work, and we can see his idea of economy of opulence and the economy of plenty. These are the two technical terms used by John Ruskin. Actually, these unpaid activities and the non-monetary factors are coming under the economy of plenty. And whereas the economics of opulence or economics of scarcity is related to the paid or the monetary aspects of the economy. The opulence means the money aspects of the economy. It's a unique economic framework to study the monetized and non-monetized areas of the economy. But this is the fundamental theoretical framework given by John Ruskin unto this last. Further, the Tamil saint Thiruvalluvar more than 2000 years ago also identified the duties and the qualities of a good housewife, having equalizing the expenses with the revenue. And it is a symbol of virtues to a house. Actually, as far as the India is concerned, one study by one famous economist from Coimbatore, I'm not remembering that name, his name, Dr. Kanaka Sabhavati. He introduced an important concept in Indian context, where women the family is having an important aspect in the context of development in Indian economy compared to the other Western civilizations or Western countries. For instance, in South India, so many entrepreneurs developed their skill because of their grandparents' support, or aged ones, or the mother's support. So in the context of India, the support of the family is an important context of development, which is not so in the case of other Western countries. This is the study by Dr. Kanaka Sabhavati. And CDS UNDP study. In 1975, the CDS UNDP study of Kerala economy identified an important quality of Kerala development context. For instance, the human development aspect, the health index, the education index, and the growth index together determines the well-being of the economy. That was the study by 1975. Actually, today's inauguration by the enlightening remarks by Dr. Sunil Mani sir is actually having a very connected to our own tradition. For instance, Dr. 𝐝𝐚𝐴𝐽𝐺𝐬 is architect of such non-monetized and other variables related to development. This is the first study against the GDP per capita. So other things are also happened all over the world. For instance, in the Bhutanese economy, happiness is having an important context. And green GDP, or so many other concepts as social progress index. So many other variables are being promoted afterwards, or after, I think, after 1960s and anyway, these type of things are happening in the early time itself. We can search for more such visionary thinking in the history of mankind in India and all over the world. Next, as far as the norm for development is concerned, I think John Ruskin is the first economist who recognized housewife as a real economist. You see the remark, the housewife takes care of her furniture in the parlor, parlor, and guards against all waste in her kitchen. And the singer who rightly disciplines are never overstrains her voice, or are political economists. It's the first time this such type of unpaid services are being recognized in the history of economic thought. This is now having a quantified survey, or this unpaid time use survey is now quantified the great thinkers' contributions, and at that because at the time of their talk, people never recognized their value. Now people are recognizing the value through the recent unpaid service activities recognitions. And next is the need for time use survey. The main economic statistics used in as national accounts, the SNA, is having some drawbacks. It is highly incomplete because all activities are not coming. The employment statistics cover less than half of all valuable work done in the total economic system. It is less than half. Other works are at home only. But less than work is being recognized. And the understanding activities that take place beyond the current arbitrary boundaries of system of national accounts and of market work. But there is an extension of SNA, system of national accounts. This was highlighted by Ironmonger 1999 at Melbourne University and Ahmedabad International Seminar held in 1999 under by UN, I think UNDP and MOSP. Then as far as the economy is concerned, there are two divisions, the market economy and the non-market economy. The GDP or other monetized factors are coming under the formal market economy. The other three aspects are there. The subsistence informal economy, where self-consumed aspects are there. We are producing and consuming, and we are sharing the things to the neighboring persons without any monetary transactions. That is also very difficult to catch these aspects. Subsistence and informal economy. Then the household economy is a very important aspect because human development is directly concerned with the household economy. The time devoted for education, time devoted for leisure, happiness is concerned. So happiness, that education, all these variables are coming because of the focus in the household economy. And the other non-market economy is the area. This I identified because some other aspects, like non-monetized value of environment is not coming under this discussion because the household economy is not discussing the environmental aspects and that. So some other aspects are still unearthed, and this can be given by the name other non-market economy transactions. This we are not discussing here. So gross economic product as an inclusive GDP. This is an important concept given by Ironmonger in 1999. He says he's a Melbourne-based economist. And a gross economic product. This is a new concept given by Monger, and a gross domestic product. He termed it as gross market product. The GDP is a perfect measure of market economy and may be called by the name market product. A gross household product, GHP, is the productive activities carried out in the unpaid or other services of the at home. But this child care, cleaning clothes, accommodation, shopping, voluntary work, self-education, all these things are coming under GHP. And GHP plus GMP will lead to GEP. So gross economic product is a real measure of development by including the contributions of the household economy. In India, the National Accounts Division, NAD, is assigned with the role to estimate GDP and to give technical guidance to DS and maintain liaison with the international organizations. As far as the time use survey is also concerned, a continuous interaction with the state level statistic division and international organizations are required for the better implementation of these type of surveys. The system of national accounts are need for flexibility. As far as the gross domestic product estimation and other monetized areas are concerned, we are getting the details, the inputs from the 1993 SNA and the 2008 SNA. But this is the on the basis of this only we are calculating and measuring the things. The 1993 SNA incorporated the concept of satellite accounts. Satellite accounts are the major steps in the direction of flexibility in accommodating the variables like environmental accounting, household activity, etc. So UNDP recognizes the fact that the current GDP is insufficient to measure the real aspects of the economy. So we have to create a satellite account. Using satellite account is a means of expanding the relevance of the national accounts without affecting availability. For instance, if you accommodate the household account in the current GDP, it will give an exaggerated figure. So we cannot compare with the previous years also. So UNDP suggested a satellite account. And SNA 2008 also introduced a supplementary account also, which is where it is specific relevance to each economy. Each economy is having different qualities, different alignment, different economic aspects. So multi aspects are being recognized in the SNA 2008. The limitations of a SNA boundary. As far as the SNA boundary concerned, the services produced and consumers, consumer households are not included. It only includes the imputed rent aspects of the owner-occupied buildings and the payments to domestic staff. But no estimate is included in the SNA for the labor service for non-profit institutions account. But this is positively affecting the welfare of the people. The need for household national accounts. In the place of SNA, we have to create a new area where HNA is have to be focused for this type of time use survey. And this theoretical background is to be discussed in detail. The accounts that show the economy operations of the household economy, this is a separate form, but consistent with the system of national accounts for the market economy. It is in connection with the SNA of the market economy. The rules about how National Statistics Office should measure GDP have been developed through a series of international meetings under the sponsorship of United Nations Economic and Social Council. We have to copy these type of consultations for better improvement of the time use survey. The importance of time use survey, the consistent, regular and timely estimates of value of household activities are an extension of monetary SNA to cover the market transaction through household account. Actually, it is not limited to paid work, unpaid work, or leisure. It is having more understanding to the context of understanding development in the fuller aspect. HD is having a direct implications of time, because proper understanding the efficiency of household work, time utilized for human development. The time use surveys are required to identify household time utilization for maintaining human development. So this is very significant aspect. And the type of household surveys. As far as the time use survey is concerned, it is mostly focused on the volume of time or volume of the percentage of time being utilized for the household activities. Another area, unexplored areas, household expenditure surveys are there, household output surveys are there. This was the insights given by Iron Manger. And the Chinese classification, China also introduced that time use survey. And SNA, they categorized it as in 3 categories. SNA protection. This is, I think, related to GDP. All aspects are coming. So SNA aspects is coming. Non-SNA aspects is coming. And the personal care and self-maintenance aspects were given as a separate head in the Chinese calculation. But US in the Scandinavian countries, as far as the Scandinavian countries is concerned, Finland, Norway, and Sweden, they copied the input-output tables of Australia. Australia gone a long way in the time use survey. So we have to study the experience of Australian statistical system regarding the time use survey, because they in connection with the Melbourne University, the statistical system is creating more research-oriented activities there. Among the Scandinavian countries, Norway is particularly significant because the different types of household, single woman, single man, coupled with the not children, coupled with the small children, coupled with the older children, All these categorizations and comparisons are available in the Norwegian concept. The next CMEPSP, the Commission of Measurement of Economic Progress and Social Performance by Amartya Sen, the Nobel laureates Amartya Sen, Stiglitz and 𝐓𝐢𝐬𝐬, conducted a study in France. They also highlighted the household perspective. Average income, consumption, and wealth are meaningful statistics, but do not tell the whole story about living standards. Well-being means multi-dimensional and to be used based on academic research and a number of concrete initiatives developed around the world because of that. And they formulated certain key dimensions. Material standards. First one is related to the monetary aspects of the economy. Others are mostly related to the household activities and non-monetary features. Statistical officers should provide the information needed to aggregate across the quality of life dimensions, allowing the construction of different indices. This is the important suggestion given by the CMEPSP report in 2009. And the pilot survey of time use in 1998, India conducted a time use survey of 6 states, and result it's having less sample. So we cannot rely on the result because it is a pilot survey. That survey concluded that the proper individual development, a man should get equal time for reading, listening, leisure, all these things to be addressed. And TUS in India 2019, I am not focusing on the result of this TUS survey 2019 because we have to see the background behind this survey and the connected to the economic aspects and sociological aspects, psychological aspects. For instance, when we are undertaking household activities, we are making breakfast in your own kitchen. We are taking care of all health aspects there. Further, the cleaning, the American Psychology Association now concluded that cleaning vessels will create your happiness because it will remove your mental agony. So unpaid service is having a social aspect and a psychological aspect also. Whether the survey period was a personal interview method and covering a period of 24 hours starting from 4 a.m. on the day before the date of interview to 4 a.m. on the day of interview. And participate, I have quoted some result of the participation on paid domestic service for households. Rural, we can see a clear distinction between the rural and the urban, male and female. Actually, we cannot see any much difference between the rural and the urban. Because 82.1% of the rural females' participation is in the unpaid domestic services, whereas the male participation is only 27.7%. And the unpaid caregiving service also, we can see the difference. Women is giving much service to the country as far as the household productive activities are concerned. Then the participation in SNA production activities. SNA production activities, male is dominating because they are having work, they are getting salary, they are getting all monetary benefit according to the participation rate revealed by the 2019 survey. Whereas the participation rate in non-SNA production activities showed that the women or female are getting very less. They are because their service is more 84.2% of the rural and male and 84.2 for the rural and 81.59 for the urban. They are all participating in the non-SNA production activities. They are unpaid, so they are giving service and they are not getting the benefit also. Female participation rate in unpaid domestic service, caregiving, and non-SNA activities. This is the clear story. Ron says that household work and this household value added is the same order of magnitude. So whatever SNA is added, we have to add the same order of magnitude to this type of unpaid domestic services also. Then suggestions for the time use survey. I am just concluding my talk. The time use survey, especially HNA like SNA, is deeply connected with the sociological, economic, and psychological studies. For regular consultation with the academic circle and research group of statistical system is required for the improvement in the timely survey. Because we can see the example of Melbourne University, Thiruvananthapuram and Australian statistical system. But this is an important suggestion. And for the use of academic circle, publish an abridged edition of the timely survey result with adequate description of scope and importance in less than 200 pages, and which will give adequate publicity to the timely survey and adequate discussion regarding that. And this is an important opportunity. And Azadi ka this Mahotsav day, we are. I am very pleasurely or happy to see the invitation by Deputy Director General presenting this type of discussion. And thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Subhash, for giving us an introductory talk explaining the background and importance of time use surveys. The next session will be discussing unpaid work activities in India, results from time use survey 2019. I invite Sri Sandeep Kumar Sadhu, Deputy Director, SDRD, for delivering the talk.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, yes.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. First of all, great thanks to Sunita madam and Thiruvananthapuram for extending the invitation to share this time use survey results. And good morning to one and all. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Ramesh for giving such an insightful history of time use survey. It was really enlightening. So my topic is the unpaid work activity, some results from the time use survey. So before we go directly to the results, I would like to share some of the aspects of time use survey. First, the objective with which TUS was conducted was mainly to measure this participation and time spent in paid and unpaid work by male and female. So that was the main objective. Apart from that of course, since it's time use survey, it was to measure that how Indian people are spending their time of 24 hours of the day in different type of activities, which includes your caregiving activities, unpaid volunteer works, leisure, and even self-care activities. So these are the main three objectives with which TUS was conducted. With these objectives, we have definitely some indicators for each survey. For time use survey, the main indicators are participation rate, that is how much of the people are participating in which activity, and secondly, the average time spent in a day. Now, this average time spent in a day, they have two concepts we'll see in the next slides. And this share and average time spent in a day and participation rate, these are both for paid and unpaid activities as well as for other activities. So this will give the distribution of 24 hours that we have in a day that are spread over all the activities. So these are main indicators that with which TU was conducted. The indicators that we were talking, participation rate, it is simply the percentage of persons in the entire population that are participating in the concerned activities. Now, average time spent in a day, it has two concepts, per person and per participant. When we talk about average time spent in a day per participant, we mean involving only those persons who have actually taken part in that activity. And when we say average time spent in a day per person, we include all the cohort, all the persons, irrespective of whether they have taken part in that activity or not. So this is the per person and per participant concept. So when we talk about average time spent in a day per person, if we add up the time, it will give a distribution of 24 hours for it, whereas for per participant, it will not be so. So this is the definition. A calculative definition of per person and per participant concept. So in first, we have, if you see the definition of average time spent per participant, you just notice the denominator. The denominator is different for the two definitions. For per participant, we take the total number of persons participating in activity A, whereas for average time spent per person, we take all the persons, total number of persons, irrespective of whether they have taken part in that particular activity or not. So So this is the basic difference between per person and per participant concept. Levels of disaggregation for estimates we have in the report. If you see, I'm sure you have already seen the report. So it gives a different level of disintegration for the estimates. This includes the sector, as rural and urban, gender, male, female, age for different age groups, level of education, and of course, state for each state and UT. These estimates have been given, both their participation rate as well as time spent per day. Coverage, it has already been once mentioned by Dr. Ramesh. Geographical coverage, it was all of the Indian Union except some inaccessible villages and areas of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And as far as persons are concerned, all the members of a household who are 6 years and above, aged 6 years and above, so they have been covered for collection of data in time use survey. Some concepts that I'll broadly mention. Reference period, it has already been also mentioned by Dr. Ramesh. 4 a.m. from the day, from day before of the survey till the 4 a.m. of the day of the survey. Time slots, the entire 24 hours time has been divided into time slots of 30 minutes. That way it gives 48 time slots for collection of data, of time use for each survey. And it was collected on personal interview basis. Now, for a time slot in a time slot of 30 minutes, only those activities were considered for which are performed for at least 10 minutes. If any activity was performed for maybe I may be talking with my friend for 2 or 3 minutes, or maybe 5 minutes, that activity were not recorded. It was not recorded. If at least I have performed any activity for 10 minutes, it was counted, else not. Code structure, it was an important aspect that activities were classified or recorded in terms of international classification of activity for time use 2016, that is 𝐼CAT-US 2016 codes there are. So according to that code structure, activities have been recorded. A brief glimpse of that activity code. The TUS code, there are 9 major divisions at single digit level. So this is the list of the 9 major divisions. This includes from employment activities, production of goods, etc. It includes learning, then socializing, culture and leisure, and self-care and maintenance. All these are here. These are major divisions. Each of the major division, they are further classified into division, that is a 2-digit level, and in group for 3-digit level. These 3-digit level activities, that is for each group, gives an elaborate description of each activity. So in terms of 3-digit code, the activities are recorded for each time slot for each person. Now, the concept of paid and unpaid status, that is the subject of main subject of our talk. Unpaid activities, these include unpaid caregiving services and unpaid domestic services for the household members. Then production of goods for own consumption. These are also considered unpaid activities, voluntary work and unpaid training work. These have been categorized as unpaid activities for the purpose of results. But paid activities includes the activities related to self-employment and any activities related to your regular wage salary activities and casual labor works for which you are being paid. So these are paid activities. Whatever activities are remaining, like self-care, leisure, learning, they have been grouped as residual other activities. So mainly, there are 3 categories of activities for the purpose of results: unpaid, paid, and residual other activities. So we'll mainly focus here on paid and unpaid activities. Residual activities, we will, in 1 or 2 cases, we will see the things related to residual activities. Now, 2 main aspects that will impact on, interpreting the results, the type, on its type of the day, in which type of day the data was collected. Mainly, I may be coming to office regularly. Maybe tomorrow I'll be on leave. So the tomorrow will not be a regular day for me. It will be a non-regular day or a non-normal day for me. But if today is a normal day for me, because whatever I do every day regularly, usually, I'm also doing that today also. I'm attending office, I'll go to my home like that. So today is a normal day. Tomorrow, if I'm on leave, it will be normal. So this type of differentiation was made for collection of data. And the thing, day of the week. It was planned in such a way that the collection of data in a particular FSU is spread all over the days. So like if I'm going to the field, maybe I'm going to on Saturday, and I'll collect all the data for Thursday and Friday, then other days I'm missing. So it was planned in such a way that I get representative data from all the households. So as per the reason, 14 households was surveyed in each FSU, and it was planned that 2 households on each day of the week it will be canvassed, so that we get a representative for all over the week, all the days of the week. In all, there were 10,004 FSUs are surveyed in the survey, and distributed in the states and UTs as per their population ratio, all the number of FSUs, and with the condition that at least 16 FSUs have been allocated to each state or UT. So like that, and state UT level samples are further distributed to rural and urban areas with in proportion to the population, and with a 1.5 weightage to urban sector. As we mentioned, from each FSU, 14 households were selected, and from each household, only those members who are aged 66 years and above, the data were collected for those households members. Now, some results. As we talked about the type of day from which the data were collected, it is expected that most of us will be having a normal day for the when data was collected. So the result also shows that for 90.5% of the people of the entire surveyed people, where it was a normal day, whereas only 9.1% they had some different type of day, maybe holiday, they might be attending some function, they might be holidaying, but doing something else that they don't do regularly. And for the female, it was 91.5% of female reported on a normal day, and almost 90% of male reported on a normal day, whereas around 10% male reported on a non-normal day. So this we can say that all the results come from a normal day. Whatever time use has been reported, they are from a normal day. Day of the week, as planned in the survey, that 2 households will be canvassed on each day. So the results also shows that almost 14% of the household on an average has been canvassed on each day of the week, beginning from Monday, Sunday, Monday, and like that, both for male, female, and as the population as a whole also. So this is in conformity with the plans of the survey. So now, who provided the information for my time use? Because if someone else is, my neighbor is providing some time use data of me, that is hardly, I mean, it's to some extent. So as this table shows that either my household, my time use information, either I can give or my household member can give. So this table shows you that information only, that of all the persons recorded, 59.3% of the persons reported their own time use, whereas 39.7% for almost 40% people, it was reported by either, any of the household members. So a very minuscule population, very minuscule person, 0.5% of the person time use reported by someone who is not associated with the household. So that is very minuscule population. For male and female, if you see, almost 65% of the female they reported their own time use survey. The rest, it was reported by their household members. And for males, it is 54% of the males have reported their own time use. This somewhat not a major deviation, but males have somewhat lesser percent of male have reported their own time use surveys, maybe due to various reasons. Whereas 45% of the males, their time use was reported by some other household members. Participation rate in these, what percentage of population participating in each of the activities. So these are as per the major divisions, 9 major divisions that we have seen in earlier slides. In each of the 9 major activities, what percentage of male and female and persons are taking part. So if we see in employment and related activities, the first one, around 57.3% of the male are participating in employment and related activities, where it is only 18.4% for female. Overall, it is 38.2%. So there is a major, we can say, gap in male and female while participating in employment-related activities. The thing is quite reverse in unpaid domestic services. We see only 26.1% of male are participating in unpaid domestic services, while the percentage is quite, it is severely high in for females. It's 81.2%, whereas averaging over all the population, it comes to 53.2% of the people who are participating in unpaid domestic service. So the trend is quite reverse in for when you consider employment and unpaid domestic services. Also, for unpaid caregiving services, there is a significant gap, but not as much as the unpaid domestic services. So the gap is 14% for male and 27.6% for female. Rest all are at part, but when we see at learning, again, more males are participating in learning activities, around 24%, whereas it's around 20% in for female, sorry. Rest of the activities we are at part when you consider male and female in terms of participation. Now, average time spent, again, the same thing continues here. If we see employment and related activities, males are spending around 263 minutes in a day in employment-related activities, whereas for female it is only 61 minutes. Again, continuing the reversal trend in unpaid domestic services, where females are spending 243 minutes and males only 25 minutes. So there is a drastic gap in these two categories. Also, unpaid caregiving services, there is, of course, 37 minutes being spent by female, whereas males spend only 11 minutes in caregiving services. The rest of all the activities we can see learning again, as in participation rate. In average time spent also, males are spending more time, around 102 minutes, and females are spending 84 minutes. Whereas for the at the population level, people are spending on an average 93 minutes in learning activities. Rest we can see socializing, we spent around 130 minutes on an average. For cultural leisure activities, 143 minutes, and self-care maintenance 726 minutes. So these all makes up, as we were saying, average time spent in a day per person. So if we add up these things, we get a 24 hours time period. It will account for 24 time. It will give the time distribution of 24 hours. That is 1440 minutes in a day. Percentage distribution of time that we'll see in the next slide. So this gives the percentage distribution of our 24 hours in which activity we are spending how much of time. So the left hand side gives for male and right hand side gives for female. So if we see broadly from the diagram,
Please, all of you,
males.
please mute. Some disturbance is there. Those who are not muted, please do so. Sandeep, you can continue.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So if we take a bird's eye view from the diagram, so self-care maintenance almost male and female are spending almost 50% of their time in male self-care and maintenance activities. Now, if we see this blue part, employment and related activities, it is exaggeratingly, I mean, it is quite observable. Employment-related activities, it consists of a major chunk of male's time, while only a minuscule for female. And this green part is for unpaid domestic services. So this is a major chunk for females, whereas consists of a little part for males, 24 hours time. So these two things are quite eye-catching things in these results. Next, percentage of participation rate in different unpaid caregiving services. Unpaid caregiving, we have seen that 27.7% of persons are taking part in unpaid caregiving services. Now, how much of that caregiving services can be many things like childcare, care for dependent adults, like that. So most of the time, most of the persons who are indulged in unpaid caregiving activities, they are mostly taking care of the child. Childcare, it is the major part of the, unpaid caregiving activities. The rest are all, they are also minuscule amount. So almost 19.8% of the persons are doing childcare and activities, like 26.6% for female and 13% stands for male. For unpaid caregiving time also, it is the same thing. Child care instruction consists of the major part of the time, and for care of dependent adults. So child care consists of 134 minutes for female, and which is only 74 minutes for male. Whereas it is reverse for your care for dependent adults. For dependent adults, males are spending almost 104 minutes, while females are 89 minutes. So overall, it is consider all the population. It consists of 94 minutes. And unpaid domestic services. So this table gives the participation rate of male and female and all the population in uh, unpaid domestic services. Now, which unpaid domestic service consists of how much of participation rate? Food and meals management preparation. So if we see this is the interesting thing that females, 75.2% of females have been preparing and managing meals, whereas males only 5.6%. Same thing for cleaning and maintaining your own household or surroundings. 64.8% females are doing these activities, whereas for males it is only 7.4%. At population level, it both comes around 40 and 36%. So these two are some drastic things, and also for care and maintenance of textile and footwear. These are household chores as our daily things we can also see in our daily lives. That these are only confirming those results that 44% females take care of household textile or whatever they take care of that, whereas only not even 3% of male are doing that. Rest of the things we can see the differences, but they are not as drastic as in these three categories. Coming to the time spent in that, again, food and meal management, women are spending more than 200 minutes of their day in preparing a meal, whereas males hardly spend 95 minutes. And all the, in terms of time spent, they all are rest differences are there, but not as much as this big in other categories. Whereas if we consider all the unpaid domestic services, so women are spending almost 300 minutes of their day, whereas males nearly 100 minutes, not even 100, 97 minutes males are spending. And if we consider all the cohort, then around 250 minutes is being spent by us, including both irrespective of male and female in unpaid domestic services. And this is the share of paid and unpaid participation rate in unpaid and unpaid activities broadly by male and female. So if you see at personal level, 63.6% people are participating in unpaid activities. But when we come to male and female, it is 84% female are participating in unpaid activities, whereas not even 44% of male are participating in. The trend quite reverse and exaggeratingly reverse for paid activities, whereas almost 55% of male are participating in paid activities, only 17% of female are participating in that. So there is, for paid and unpaid activities, there is quite a reverse trend, as we can see. And for the entire population, only 36.2% of the population are participating in paid activities. Now, this gives a distribution of when we consider only the time spent in paid and unpaid activities, leaving alone the residual activities. So this gives a percentage distribution of the paid and unpaid activities into paid and unpaid activities. That is how much time of the paid time spent in paid activities and how much in unpaid activities for rural male and female. The blue part gives part of unpaid activities, and the reddish part gives some paid activities. So if we see male, so in rural and urban, both cases, males are spending more time in paid activities. But in our rural areas, the gap is more. 26.5% of males' time are spent in unpaid activities, whereas in urban it is only 12.1%. So 88% of their time in urban males, 88% they are spending in paid activities. Whereas if you see the gap graph, it is, visibly catchy that unpaid activities, females are spending so much of their time, almost 86% in rural areas, almost 83% in urban areas. So the gap for male is more in rural and urban areas as compared to female in rural and urban areas. Of course, male and female, when you compare, the gap is drastically high. So these are some of the results from TUS regarding paid and unpaid activities. Uh, that much from my side. If any questions are there, thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. Sandeep is the right person to discuss the details of the time use survey and its results, because he has been closely associated with the survey from the beginning till its release of the report. So we can discuss the results of the survey or its conduct of the survey. Sandeep will be the person who can be explaining this to us. So this is the time for discussion. In case anyone has queries, they can unmute and ask, or you can note them in the chat box. Queries or any other viewpoint, we can do so. So I think the session was very clear. The interesting results of TUS were explained in detail with graphical representation also. So thank you once again, Sandeep, for being with us. So this is a time for a short break. We can have a short break and reassemble within 10 minutes. So the coming sessions also will be very interesting. So I request all of you to stay back, and we will be continuing the session immediately. 10 minutes break. Continue the sessions. Next, we are going to listen to Dr. Srirupa, who will be presenting the paper on conceptual and methodological issues in estimating unpaid work, a joint attempt by Professor Neeta and Dr. Srirupa. I request Dr. Srirupa to carry on.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this invitation to present our work on conceptual and methodological issues in estimating unpaid care work. Thank you to Srimati Sunita Bhaskar and the entire NSO Regional Office Thiruvananthapuram for organizing this event. First of all, let me start by congratulating NSO for the first Indian National Time Use Survey of 2019. It is a very welcome move and much needed addition to the national data set. So we know that the feminist economists have long advocated for the of unpaid work in the accounting system. However, unpaid domestic and care work is considered beyond production boundary, as many of us know have been already discussed here in this forum. And it is considered as outside the production boundary of goods and services that account for the GDP estimates, and it is rendered invisible thus. So now making women's invisible unpaid care work visible through the Time Use Survey is one of the most effective ways of actually putting to use and acknowledging the contribution of women to both the productive as well as the reproductive economy. The unprecedented inclusion of the unpaid domestic and care work in the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development has put a thrust on measuring the proportion of time spent on unpaid domestic and care work by age, sex, and location, and it has been seen as an indicator towards the achievement of the SDG target 5.4, which is to recognize and value unpaid domestic and care work. So it is a very welcome move that in 2019, the National Time Use Survey, after a long gap actually of nearly 20 years, and many calls for mainstreaming for the Time Use Survey, had actually conducted the first National Time Use Survey. And although the Time Use surveys have a long history in India, and in fact, one of the earliest Time Use surveys was conducted by Devaki Jain and Malini Chand in the early 1980s. Then the first national pilot Time Use survey was conducted in 6 major states in India about a decade later, 1998-99. And the pilot survey of 1999 was made available what was the first ever nationally representative time use data. And it brought about a flurry of scholarship on women's unpaid work, unpaid care work, and time use patterns in general. It also invoked considerable interest in the time use methodology and the measurement and valuation of time use and women's unpaid care work. So now the first Indian National Time Use Survey of 2019 actually allows us a fresh opportunity to kind of critically compare both the pilot time use survey that was done and conducted in 1998-99 and the time use survey, which is the National Time Use Survey of 2019, to look into the insights that we can get and the methodological consistencies between these surveys. Now we want to present our work in front of you to bring out some of these issues, but from the perspective of the unpaid care and domestic work. Are you able to see the next slide?
No, the slide is not moving.
Now it's
Yeah, now it is there. Now it is there. Yes.
okay. So thank you. So as I mentioned in the beginning, 1998-99 was a standalone pilot exercise, whereas the 2019 Time Use Survey is a national survey with a much larger sample of households and for a much larger respondent base compared to the pilot survey. But one of the key differences in the two surveys has been that the 1998-99 pilot TUS was largely designed as an instrument for improving statistics on unpaid economic work. And that's trying to bring it into the national income and to its contribution to the national income. And in the pilot survey, capturing unpaid economic work was given priority over unpaid housework and care work. So notably, the official statistics in India exclude certain unpaid economic work along with the unpaid domestic and care work from their estimate of workforce. So hence the pilot TUS in India was concerned with unpacking women's unpaid economic work, such as unpaid family labor, subsistence production, expenditure saving activities. Now the 2014 National TUS, on the other hand, expanded its mandate by the importance of TUS in measuring unpaid work that are outside the realm of production, unpaid care work. So which also includes work which is housework, household maintenance, including cooking, cleaning, washing, and shopping, direct care of persons of own household, such as looking after children, elderly, sick, disabled, or simply other adults requiring care. Now, unlike the pilot survey, the 2019 survey has been framed around this question of capturing the discrimination and properly acknowledges the importance of time use in measuring unpaid home as well as care work. Now, comparing both both the surveys, we can see that both use an interview method with a predefined schedule. But notably, the 2019 survey has some additional questions which are important in the analysis of many dimensions of household. Now, these are, what is the source of energy for cooking and lighting? What are the methods used for washing clothes or sweeping floor? And whether a member of the household above the age of 5 years needed any kind of care. So these are the questions that were included. Now, both the studies also use the recall method, and the reference period for 24 hours starting from 4 a.m. On the day before, which was split into 48 time slots. But compared to the pilot survey, which used a 1-year time slot window, the 2019 time survey used a 30-minute time slot, which is more appropriate with the standards. So which was a very welcome move and a change that was brought about. So one of the important features of the work that we look into, which is the women's work, is the seasonality of the care work. Now, the 1998-99 pilot TUS was administered in 4 quarters, and it was repeated every 3 months to capture seasonal variations with different households targeted in each quarter. Compared to this, the TUS 2019 was based on a 1 day, either a normal day or another day, other than the normal day as the criterion. Now, what happens is that this completely misses the seasonality of the work of the women. For example, one of the qualitative surveys done by Professor Neeta in Haryana recently had shown that the women workers there, their work was hugely affected by the season in which the work was performed. For example, certain time-consuming and torturous work was conducted during the winter seasons, which was preparing hot water for every member of the household, including for the cattle. So this was a very important time-consuming work that was carried out by women in rural areas in the northern belts of India, which goes unaccounted for unless and until we have some way of taking into account this seasonality of work. So this is a very important aspect of women's work and which needs to be somehow accounted for. And we have to bring in measures into the survey wherein we can better account for the seasonality of care work. Another very important issue is the multiplicity of work. So in the 1998-99 TUS, the issue of multiplicity of activities was addressed in a very, very limited manner. So for multiple activities, what happened was the field worker would determine the main and the secondary activity, and the total time was divided according to the relative importance. And in this kind of a way of accounting for the work, economic activities was given much more priority than the non-economic activity. Now, the 2019 survey, activities which are performed for 10 minutes or more are recorded, and 3 activities are recorded chronologically, following major time criteria, and each are given at equal time. So each activity would be given 10 minutes each. But one of the issues when we're looking at women's work is that women are not only just involved in doing multiple activities during a particular time slot, but also their activities many a times overlap, which is to say that women might be performing multiple activities at the same time. So a woman who might be minding her child or taking care of her child might also at the same time be preparing food or doing some farm related work. So their work is happening not only multiple activities, but also in a continuous basis. So many feminist economists have even previously said that our understanding of time is many times very linear, wherein one activity follows the other, but the way that women experience work and their work is many a times overlapping and simultaneous. So this question was taken into account, but not sufficiently, because the questionnaire gives information on whether an activity has been conducted simultaneously or not, but does not give any details on the activities which are done simultaneously. So the question that follows is the question on description of activity, but again has information as to whether it is major or minor activity. That's it. So which activity gets priority as major activity? If multiple activities are performed, it remains a question. So multiplicity and simultaneity are very important aspects of women's work and need to be given importance when we are collecting time use data. So most of the time use surveys, and in fact, the survey that was conducted, both the pilot survey as well as the national time use survey are based on some common assumption. And one of them is the measurability assumption. The assumption that like paid economic activity, unpaid work is performed continuously and is measurable. But as I discussed just previously, that might not be the case. And women's work most often is overlapping and simultaneous. So what is required actually is obtaining detailed information on daily time schedule, which might not be easy, and a lot of probing would be required to draw out that kind of data, and investigators finishing a large number of respondents as has been required in some of these surveys makes it pretty difficult for us to get those kind of in-depth information and information through probing questions. Another important aspect which we have to take into consideration is the cultural norms and the social expectations, which affects the way people perceive their own work, how women perceive their own work and activities. So when respondents also tend to report their daily activities, they tend to over-report activities that are considered socially as something which is important. There could also be investigator bias, which comes in when we are recording these data. So now many respondents tend to give more information, as we've noted in some of these time use surveys, about the physical labor that goes into it. That is the manual, the domestic work that women often perform, but many a time women are not aware or may not consider all the care activities that they perform as something to be important to be recorded or reported. So what happens is care work often is seen not as work, and it is something which comes automatically to them, and they might miss out on reporting these kind of activities. And there is a risk of missing out the unpaid care work that women perform. In fact, when we look at the data, we suspect and we see this huge underrepresentation of the unpaid care work that women do. So if you look at the percentage of persons participating in different activities in a day, and if you look at the unpaid domestic services provided by household members and compare it with the unpaid caregiving services provided for household members, we see that in the rural areas, while there is a reporting by women, 82% of women reported unpaid domestic services, but only 28% approximately report providing unpaid care services. And in the context of urban women, the percentage is 79 and 26. Now, if we look at the average time in minutes which is spent in a day per participant in different activities, again, we see that for unpaid care services, for rural women, only 132 minutes has been reported, and for urban women, only 138 minutes has been reported, compared to 300 for domestic services amongst rural females and 293 for domestic services for urban females. So this seems to be a huge underrepresentation of the unpaid care services provided by women. This again, if we average it out for all women and all men, so we would get these services. So this of average of 37 minutes in a day for rural women and 36 minutes in a day for urban women is a huge underrepresentation. So some of the issues which we had discussed previously about the multiplicity of the women's work, simultaneity of women's work, and also the seasonality and the variations that it brings in, and how do we try to capture it, or how do we sometimes miss capturing some of those variations, might be some of the reasons which explain this huge representation. And while this has been a very, very useful and very timely exercise, but we would urge that, we need to pay some more attention, some more methodological measures need to be taken so that we are better able to account for the unpaid care work that is provided by women in India. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Srirupa. So, while discussing the comparison of pilot TUS in India and the nationwide TUS, she had highlighted the changes, and she was pointing out the necessary measures to be taken in the future time use surveys to take care of the probable underestimation that happened to the unpaid caregiving activities. So that is an interesting point brought out to our notice on the basis of data results. So in case anybody is having any further discussion on this matter, we can have it for a moment.
Ma'am, I am Sural Dev from Kozhikode.
Yes.
Please ask.
Actually, our Srirupa ma'am has done a very good job. She has pointed out some right.
സ്വരം കേൾക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ലല്ലോ, സ്വരം കേൾക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ല സുനിൽ ദേവ്.
Ma'am, ഇപ്പൊ കേൾക്കാമോ?
കേൾക്കാം പറഞ്ഞോളൂ.
Actually, she has raised some very good criticisms or apprehensions, and it's all are very valuable. But I would like to point out 2 points. One thing is, ma'am, actually this quarter-wise data collection we did not follow during the 2019 survey, but in fact during the entire year survey was going on. So I think we have already that point is already taken care of in that design. In the pilot survey, the samples were limited, so we had to distribute it over the quarters. But in the actual survey that was conducted in 2019, the survey spanned over the entire year. And another thing is, of course, we had time constraints, but the survey staff in the field were canvassing only 2 households in a day. So that time constraint issue is also was not there, I think. I just wanted to mention these things. Thank you for taking care of our data and considering so seriously. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much. I could not hear entirely, I think, what you were saying, but I got the sense that you were pointing out to the fact that the time constraint that was there in conducting such a huge survey, that is the national 2019 National Time Use Survey. And certainly that's very well appreciated. But one of the important impetus for us to bring to you or your attention, the NSSO's attention, these issues was precisely to show us that the issues of seasonality, the issues of multiplicity and simultaneity are very important. They affect women's work very differently. And if we want to capture women's work, and especially women's care work properly, we have to find means to be able to capture these seasonalities. So it could be that even if we are not able to do a time-consuming exercise, but what could be done is that we could have something like activities, which we have already noted that these are activities which are taken up more during certain seasonal times, and these are more time-consuming, more drudgerous. So we can use some kind of activity cards or bring in these more in our probing questions so that we try to bring information more in our data. Maybe we could just include some questions like asking them which season or which activities during the year are the most, time consuming. So we need to kind of think a little bit out of the box to try and bring these aspects of their work to the time use survey.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other queries for this particular session?
Yeah, ma'am, it's Sandeep. May I come in?
Yeah, please.
Dr. Shilpa, it was a very good presentation indeed. There are many aspects that we see from a presentation. Two things I would like to ask from you. If I did perceive you rightly, you are pointing something issues relating major activity and multiplicity activity identification, right? So if I get you rightly that you have not been able to identify the multiple activities and major activities, am I right?
Carry on, please.
Yeah, so I just like to point out that there is one information that whether the activity is major activity or not. So from there you can identify that. And also the multiple activities, there are also three activities you are recording in a time slot of 30 minutes. So there, from there you can identify the multiple activities as well as the major activity for everyone. If that solves your problem.
Yeah, but the question was also who determines whether the activity is a major activity or a minor activity.
Respondent.
Hence,
Respondent.
Yes, and we also know that when we do surveys, it is actually the interaction between the respondent and the surveyor which actually produces data, and it's not purely the respondent. And also the question that remains to be answered is that if simultaneous activities are carried out, then how do we decide which is a major activity and which is a minor activity? How does that get properly recorded? Because we just have one question which asks whether the activities were simultaneous or not, right? So, those were the questions that I was trying to raise.
The surveys are, I mean, based on respondents' reply. Anyway,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank
Thank you, Dr. Srirupa, once again. Let us
Thank
move on to the next session.
Thank
So I invite Deputy Director Sri 𝐲𝐸𝐴 to talk on the topic Gender Parity in Work for Home among Indian Households, Insights through Time Use Survey.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is the screen visible to all?
Yes, it is visible and you are audible also. Please carry on.
Thank you, ma'am. So I am 𝐓𝐢𝐬𝐴. Currently, I'm working as a Deputy Director in NSO-FOD Regional Office, Pune. And today I will be presenting some insights through the Time Use Survey on the gender parity in work for home among the Indian households. The initial part of this presentation will be some insights from a joint work which I had done with Srimati A. Shrija, who is working as the economic advisor in Department of Economic Affairs. And the title of our study was regarding the female labor force participation insights through Time Use Survey. And this was published in a Review of Market Integration in 2020. So just to give a brief background, if we look at the female labor force participation rate in India, so for rural females, it is 19.7 as against 55.1% for the rural men. And similarly, for urban females, it's 16.1 and 56.7 for urban females and males respectively. These figures are taken from PLFS 2018 data report. And there's a gap of around 35.4% in rural and 40.6% in urban among the male and female labor force participation rate. Also interesting is to see that 42.5% of the women in the age group of 15 plus years are engaged in domestic activities only, and another 14.2% are engaged in domestic activities along with free collection of goods and activities like sewing, tailoring for the household use. So why time utilization matters? So from the initial background which we saw in the previous slide, we can get to know that women are mostly spending their time on the unpaid domestic and caregiving activities. But if they participate in the and become a part of the labor force, it's a step towards economic empowerment, which helps in overall social well-being and development of human capital, because empowering of women through economic empowerment brings not only effect social empowerment for the women, but also has second round effects for the other family members in terms of better health and education outcome for the children and other members of the household. And gender equality and empowerment are among the two important agenda points in the Sustainable Development Goals. Also, SDG 5.4 recognizes and values, tries to identify this issue of unpaid care and domestic work. And similarly, Goal 8 looks for accessibility for decent work for both men and women in order to have an inclusive growth. So these are some facts for a cross-country comparison among the G20 countries, and it can be seen that among all the G20 countries, the female to male labor force participation ratio is lowest for India. So according to a study which was done by World Bank, the contribution of females to the economic activities is estimated to be around 17%, which is less than 50% of the world average. And if the female labor force participation increases to the level of 50%, then the GDP, that is the economic growth, increases by around 1.5 percentage points. So what are the factors which affects a women's decision to be a part of the labor force or to continue with unpaid domestic and caregiving activities? Various studies have been already done in this regard. So social norms and customs is one of the most important factors. The norm that women bear primary responsibility for household work and childcare might be one of the most challenging norm to change. And also, women face the double burden of domestic unpaid work along with the other economic activities which are being undertaken. So this also affects the amount of time which is devoted by women to the economic activities, taking into consideration the priority which is being given to domestic unpaid services for the household members. Another important reason for women not coming into labor force was highlighted by Rangarajan, Vinod, as well as Capsos, was the income effect. That is, as the income of the household goes on increasing, then there's a tendency that women prefer to fall back from the workforce, and it's the men who are earning more, they continue to work. Similarly, there is education effect, which was highlighted in the same paper by Rangarajan and also by Capsos, that as more and more females start studying and get into good educational institutes and continue studying, then that also has a negative impact on the labor force participation. Similarly, improved standards of living and mechanization of agriculture were highlighted as reasons by Malhotra. In one of the studies which was done previously by Sanghi and others, so it was highlighted that there is a structural change in the economy wherein the economy moves from the agriculture-based economy to manufacturing and then to service sector tertiary economy. And in that transition, there are limited remunerative opportunities for the women who don't have those skill sets required for the structural changes which are coming in the economy. And because of that, they prefer to fall out and withdraw from the labor markets. So the income effect had been studied based on the results from the time use survey in our work previously. So according to Minzer, in his study on the labor force participation of married women, he came to the conclusion that income is assumed to have a negative impact on the total amount of work, market as well as home, and positive impact on the demand for leisure. So whenever there is increase in the market wage rate for some family member, it makes the consumption of leisure and production of home services by the individual more costly. And therefore, it also nudges the other members of the family to enter into the labor market. So increase in the income level should ideally lead to substitution of women unpaid work with domestic servants, domestic automated appliances, as well as processed food. And this will in turn reduce the burden of unpaid domestic work on women, whereby they can contribute more to the economic activities. But CAPSAS in 2014 observed that the increased education and household consumption level contributed to the decline in the female labor force participation in India. The shift in the distribution towards higher consumption levels and negative impact on overall participation rates in India accounted for around 9% of the total decline in the female labor force participation between the years 2005 and 2010. So if we see at the trends in the labor force participation rate across the UMPCA, that is the monthly per capita consumption expenditure, this data has been taken from PLFS 2018 report. So we can see that across the decile classes of the UMPCE, the female labor force participation rate, both for urban as well as rural women, goes on increasing. And if we see at the participation rates and the minutes spent in a day on an average per participant by the rural female and urban female, it can be seen that almost all the women have been undertaking the unpaid domestic activities across all the decile classes, and the share is around 80 to 85% in both the rural as well as urban areas. And the approximate average time which is spent by women on these unpaid activities across the decile classes of income, which is indirectly measured through the MPCE, is around 6 hours. Similarly, if we go for the education effect, we can see that it shows and invert, we can say it's a U-shaped curve, wherein initially with the increase in the level of education, the participation in the labor force reduces, and then with increase in the level of education, it shows an increasing trend. But if we see the trend in the unpaid domestic, on the time which is being spent on unpaid domestic services for household members as well as for the caregiving services, we can see that even if the education level of the women is increasing, still the amount of average time which is being spent on the unpaid domestic activities and caregiving activities remains the same. So we have seen that across the income classes as well as across the education level, the amount of time which is being spent by rural as well as urban female tends to remain more or less the same. That is, around 6 hours are being spent on unpaid domestic services for household, and roughly around 2 hours plus are being spent on unpaid caregiving services for the household members. So the income and the education effect in some sense does not have any impact on the amount of time which is being spent by the women in rural as well as in urban areas on the unpaid domestic services and caregiving services for household members. If we look for the SNA production activities which fall within the boundary of the system of national accounts and which are taken into consideration while measuring the gross domestic product, we can see that male contribute or spend on an average 405 minutes in a day, with a participation rate of around 65% in rural India, whereas the corresponding figures for females are around 39% participation rate, and the time spent is 225 minutes. In urban males, the corresponding figures are participation rate of 60% with the average time spent of 478 minutes. And for urban female, it's 23.1 is the participation rate with the average time spent of 273 minutes. But when we try to see the participation rates and the average time which are spent on non-SNA activities, which mostly include the unpaid domestic activities and caregiving activities. So here we can see that there is a high participation rate among the rural as well as urban female of 80 plus percentage points, and the time which is spent is more than 5 hours in a day, whereas the corresponding participation rates among men are almost less than half, and they have an average time spent of less than 2 hours in these activities. So from this, we can easily see that the entire burden of domestic unpaid activities, which includes the caregiving activities, is principally on the women of the household. If we try to see a cross-country comparison among the unpaid and caregiving activities and the female labor force participation rate across G20 countries, we can see that among all the G20 countries, the gap between the male and female among the BRIC countries, if we start with the first 5 lines are representing the BRIC countries. And here the gap between the male and female LFPR of persons age 15 plus is the highest among the BRIC countries is highest for India. And similarly, the proportion of time which is being spent by women on unpaid domestic care activities, and if we take the difference from that proportion from that which is spent by male, that is also highest for India among the BRIC countries. So high positive correlation between differences between proportion of time which is being spent by females and males on domestic and caregiving activities and gap in the female labor force participation and male labor force participation can be seen from the cross-country comparison. So among the BRICS, as I already mentioned, the proportion of time spent by females on unpaid domestic and caregiving activities is highest in India, while that by males on these activities is lowest also in India. And the LFPR is also lowest among the BRIC countries for India. Among the G20 countries, the proportion of time which is spent by female on unpaid domestic and caregiving activities is highest in Mexico, followed by Argentina and India, while among the males it is lowest in India, followed by Japan and South Korea. Thus, equitable distribution of work for home has significant impact on the labor market outcomes for female, because a 1 percentage point of reduction in the gap between the female and male time which is being spent on the unpaid domestic and caregiving activities can cause a 2.2% increase in the female labor force participation rate. So these unpaid domestic and caregiving activities are mostly, since they are not accounted for in the national accounts, as well as they are outside the coverage of the classical labor force surveys. So they are not statistically measured in the employment and employment studies. However, time use surveys are a good opportunity to capture these and to account for these unpaid domestic and caregiving services. So, as have already been highlighted by other speakers, that there is disproportionately high amount of time which is being spent by the female household, female members of the household on the domestic unpaid domestic as well as caregiving services. And if we try to analyze the daily share of time disposition of women and men, we can see that if we try to combine the economic as well as unpaid activities, that is paid and unpaid activities together, the total time which is being spent on the work that is paid as well as unpaid, in that case, the burden of work or the time which is being spent by rural as well as urban females is more than their male counterparts. So here is a short comparison between the time spent on unpaid activities among men who are in workforce and those who are attending only domestic duties. So even when women are a part of the workforce, they are spending around 245 minutes on domestic unpaid services for the household members, as compared to 355 minutes which are being spent by the rural females who are not a part of the labor force. Similarly, in urban areas, the average time spent is 214 minutes for on the domestic services for household members for women who are a part of workforce, and it's 343 for the women who are attending to domestic duties and are not considered part of workforce. So even if the women chooses to be a part of workforce, the burden of unpaid domestic work is totally biased against her, and it is definitely something which needs to be attended along with participation in the economic activities. If we try to see the time spent on employment and related activities, we get another insight or a limitation of the employment and unemployment surveys, as it can be seen over here, that in the case of workforce, means the women who are a part of workforce, they spent on an average 367 minutes on employment and related activities and 148 on production of goods for own and final use. Whereas there are women in the rural areas with a participation rate of 7% and 30% who have reported having spent time of around 200 minutes and 117 minutes on these employment and production related activities. In the traditional employment unemployment surveys, these women who are out of the labor force will not be considered while calculating the LFPR based on the principal per subsidiary status. Whereas in this case, through time use surveys, we could identify some activities which the women are not able to themselves report as being economic activities, but which fall under the ambit of the production boundary in the SNE. So time use surveys are a step towards this direction, wherein this shortfall on the part of the responder, wherein he or she is not able to report activities which are in true sense economic activities and fall within the ambit of our definition of employment and unemployment surveys, could be captured. Similarly, when we look for the unpaid domestic services for household members, disproportionately high amount of time as well as participation rate is reported in preparation of food, cleaning, maintenance of textile, and shopping for own household members. Similarly, the childcare and instruction is majorly the responsibility as well as consuming a considerable amount of time of the women household member. So towards the concept of ISO world. So now since we have seen that there has been drastic difference between the amount of time which is spent on the unpaid and paid activities. So if we try to combine the paid plus the domestic unpaid work plus the childcare plus voluntary unpaid activities, we arrive at what is called as a total work. So outside leisure and the time which is spent on self-maintenance, whatever time is being spent on paid as well as unpaid activities, that will constitute the total work. So in India, the rural male spends on an average of 433 minutes per day per participation in total work, which includes paid as well as unpaid activities, whereas in rural areas, it spends 468 minutes on an average per day per participant. In urban male and among urban male and females, these average time spent are 391 and 425 minutes respectively. So we can see that considering the paid as well as unpaid activities, that is the activities which fall within the ambit of SNA plus non-SNA production activities, the burden of average amount which is being spent on these activities is more is borne more by the women members of the household as compared to the men. Thus, a hypothesis of ISO work, that is, there is a gender parity in total amount of work which is done by men and women, is rejected for Indian households statistically. If we do a state and UT wise analysis, except in for rural areas or for the rural sector, except in Delhi, Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab, Chandigarh, Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu and Puducherry. In rural sector, for all other states and UTs, women of the household are spending on an average more time on activities which are being covered on total work as compared to the men. And in terms of absolute difference, Sikkim, Tamil Nadu, and Puducherry are close to ISO work. That means where the difference between the average time spent by men and women on total work is plus or minus 10% within this interval. In case in Delhi, Goa, Jammu and Kashmir, Jharkhand, Sikkim, Tamil Nadu, Uttarakhand, and Daman and Nicobar Islands, and Chandigarh, Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu, Lakshadweep and Puducherry, the hypothesis of ISO work is accepted, wherein the average time which is being spent by the men is equal to that which is spent by women on the activities which are considered in the total work. A similar analysis in the urban sector also reveals similar trends that in most of the states and UTs, women of the household are spending on an average more time on activities which are covered under the total work, and therefore the burden of work, that is the dual burden of paid as well as the unpaid activities, is skewed or biased towards the women members of the household. So analysis at the Thus, a non-equitable distribution of work among men and women is leading to gender disparity, and the unpaid domestic and caregiving services with high participation rate for women are such that they may be substituted with hired worker provided that there are economic incentives to do so. So if there are better labor market opportunities, definitely women can have with requisite skills can participate in these economic activities with substitutability for the domestic work through the hiring of say maid servants or some of the domestic activities which are being carried out traditionally by women can be outsourced. However, like as Elizabeth Washbrook had noted in her study in UK Time Use Survey, so whenever women start participating in the labor market due to increased labor market outcomes, there will be some substitution in the unpaid activities which are traditionally being done by the women, but these are more by outsourcing rather than by substitution of male domestic work for female domestic work. So the activities which are not being which cannot be substituted or which cannot be hired, for those activities still women need to continue doing or contributing time because the substitution by male counterparts even in those activities have not been reported. So this is the variation which we can see across states among the minutes spent in a day on an average per participant in the unpaid domestic services for household members among the females. So we have considered a study of the women in the age group of 15 to 59 years. And if we consider the average time which is spent in a day on unpaid domestic activities, there is a huge variation across the states. All India average is 315 minutes. The lowest, or we can say that average time which is spent on unpaid domestic activities is least for the state of Telangana among the female members, whereas it is highest in Bihar, where women in Bihar almost spent on an average 386 minutes in a day on unpaid domestic services for household members. Similarly, if we consider the male members, we can see that all India average amount of time which is spent by men on the unpaid domestic services for household members is 95 minutes. And there is a variation across the states. Goa reporting 71 minutes, which is the minimum average time spent by male members on the unpaid domestic services for household members. And highest has been observed in Himachal Pradesh of 118 minutes. So the hypothesis of equal contribution of men and women to household unpaid domestic activities is definitely rejected, as we can see from the magnitude of the difference between the average amount which is spent. Comparing urban and rural males, there is no statistically significant difference in the time spent on household unpaid and domestic activities. So, irrespective of whether it's urban or rural sector, there is no statistically significant difference in the average amount of time which is spent by the male members of the household in helping for the unpaid domestic activities. Comparing the urban and rural females, it can be seen that there is statistical difference in the state of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, and Tamil Nadu, wherein the urban women spend more time on unpaid domestic activities, whereas in Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal, the scenario is opposite. For the caregiving activities, there is also a wide variation among the states. The national average is around 73 minutes for the male members, but across the states, there is a huge gap from ranging from 53 minutes for Daman and Diu to Manipur of 90 minutes. And among the females, the All India average is 137 minutes, and the lowest or the least average time reported by women members in the caregiving activities for household members is 116 minutes for Jharkhand, whereas in Mizoram, on an average, women spend 200 minutes in caregiving activities for the household members. So a similar hypothesis testing for the caregiving activities revealed that the hypothesis of equal contribution of men and women to household caregiving activities is strongly rejected for all states except in Goa, Manipur, and Uttarakhand. Comparing urban and rural males, there is no statistically significant difference in the average amount of time which is being spent on the caregiving activities. And comparing the urban and rural females, there is statistically significant difference in states of Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and Telangana, wherein urban women spend more time on the caregiving activities compared to the rural women. Then there, since we have done a state-wise analysis and there is a wide variation across the states, so there seems to be some state-specific factors which may be responsible for the differences in the amount of time which is being spent on the domestic work, domestic unpaid and caregiving work. So as per Bruda 2013, the economic development leads to gender parity in unpaid domestic work, wherein the advanced or the developed economies have shown that with increase in the per capita GDP, there has been positive outcomes for the female members with respect to the unpaid domestic work, and there is more parity among the male and female members in the household, contributing equally to the unpaid domestic activities. So in our case, considering the unit level data, it has been found that parity in unpaid domestic work is positively correlated with higher level of per capita GDP. That means those states which have high GDP, there the parity in the unpaid domestic work between the men and women in the household is statistically significant. That means improvement in the GDP for the state has a positive outcome in reducing the bias of towards women in the unpaid domestic work. Similarly, another hypothesis by Fernandez is that the traditional social norms lead to lower female labor force participation rate, and hence women prefer to be engaged in unpaid domestic and caregiving services. So in this case, we found that when we study the female labor force participation rates across state and then see for its comparison with the unpaid domestic and caregiving activities, it can be seen that the bias towards the women in being engaged in unpaid domestic and caregiving activities reduces after this as the female labor force participation rates for the goes on increasing. And this is because as women start participating in the economic activities, they get economically empowered, and therefore it's possible for them to outsource the domestic caregiving as well as other unpaid services, thereby reducing their burden on in the unpaid domestic and caregiving activities. Higher proportion of women in the population indicates gender equality and more egalitarian society. This would make women more valued, and which will also imply a greater equity in distribution of work. However, from the analysis, the sex ratio of the state was not found to be significant in explaining the reduction in the bias towards women. That means the increase in the sex ratio for the state has a reduction in the bias towards the amount of time which is being spent on the unpaid domestic work. However, the fertility rate was found to be having a significantly negative effect. That means when the fertility rates for the states are high, then women mostly engage in the unpaid domestic activities, and which increases the bias towards women in contributing more than average amount of time on the unpaid economic activities. So combining the three factors of the statewide GDP, the female labor force participation rate, and sex ratio, we constructed an index, and similarly based on GSDP, female labor force participation rate, and total fertility, we constructed another index just to see how these factors combinedly specify the state specific effects, and then we tried to see like how these economic as well as development in social fronts have an impact on the amount of time which is being spent by the women on the unpaid activities. So it was found to be statistically significant. That means higher is the value of these index, means the states with higher GDP, better female labor force participation rate, lower fertility rates, or better sex ratio. In that case, the bias against women, that is the burden of the unpaid work on women, was significantly less compared to the states where the index had a lower value. So to sum up, there's a long way to go towards the level of ISO work, wherein there will be a complete parity between men and women with respect to all forms of work. However, time use surveys are a step in this direction, whereby we can quantify the amount of unpaid domestic work which women are doing, and also a step towards putting an economic value on these domestic and caregiving activities, which are outside the production boundary of SNA, but which are a part of the total production boundary as per the satellite accounts. These are the selected references which have been referred. Thank you. If there are any questions, I would be happy to take them.
Thank you, Sri Shirke, for sharing with us your research ideas from the Time Use Survey report. Also for the state-wise analysis and the gaps in labor force participation rate, and how TUS results are somehow explaining some leads. So thank you very much. In case anybody is having queries, please raise it immediately. We are running short of time. Okay, I think we can move to the next session.
Ma'am,
I
before
would
that,
like to request.
Sorry,
Yeah,
ma'am, to
yes.
interrupt. It's a pleasure being here today, and I thank NSO FOD headquarters as well as Aru Trivandrum for giving me this platform for showcasing some of the work which I have done in this area. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shirke. So let me invite Sri Sajeev PP, Director DES Kerala, to address the gathering. Okay, let us move to the next session. I will request director to join us if he is having some difficulty in connect right now later. So let us listen to Dr. Sindhumol MR, Associate Professor and Head, Department of Statistics, University of Madras. She will be talking to us on an interesting topic. Are Indian seniors getting real rest and relaxation? Sindhu, please carry on.
Is it visible?
Yeah, visible, visible.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank IADG and DDG Madam Sunita Bhaskar and NSO officers to select me to present a small section based on the NSO's time use survey. I'd also like to congratulate for conducting such a survey in India the first time. Uh, and I have chosen a small part of it to look at how what is happening in a small section of the citizen. And are Indian seniors getting rest and relaxation? It's based on your RTU's survey reports only. And the picture, I think this is the time for everybody to listen their hunger. So I will try to make it short as well as I will make it more interactive. The picture, you can see the two pictures. Okay, the picture shows that one lady, okay, who is taking rest, who is not having a senior citizen, who is not having any company, and the other person, okay, a senior citizen who is having who is socializing and have company with the animals, so that okay, they can enjoy their old age. And this is a photograph, okay, from the Deccan Chronicle, and the photographer was Anup. And I found this as more interesting because these two persons looks exactly like my aunt and my uncle, who were working, okay, until their even their old age. They were supporting their family. Our seniors are our responsibility. They are precious human resources because they have practical knowledge due to various experience and deep insights in life. It is the duty of the children to look after their aging parents under law of all religions, according to our India government law. Aging is a natural process which inevitably occurs in human life cycle. We all face one particular time period in our life. So we have to look at the problems of senior citizens. Okay, how we will be, okay, when we are in going, we will be going through such difficulties. And another thing, if you look at the average length of life, okay, it's different from countries to countries. And life expectancy of male and female are also different. And we all know that in our country, female life expectancy is a little more than male life expectancy. So let us look at how old we live. So Indian seniors average lifetime. This is based on another survey. Okay, life expectancy. If you look at the whole countries across the globe, okay, more than 80 age also. There are 38 countries. Life expectancy is greater than 80, and there are 108 countries having life expectancy between 70 and 80 ages, and there are 53 countries having a life expectancy between 60 and 70, and our country includes this group. And unfortunately, there are 27 countries which are having life expectancy less than 60 also. If you look at the countries who are having less than life expectancy, it shows that Lesotho country having the lowest life expectancy. And I told you the female are having, they are living more years compared to males. Okay, so you can see the life expectancy is 44 in that country, and San Marino country is the highest life expectancy, that is 87. And India is okay, in a rough sketch, it is a Indian citizen live around 68 age. Okay, so we have to look at the issue or the time they spend for working as well as helping others in the household. Okay, based on this crucial information that okay, like based on life expectancy. Let us see. Okay, normally in general, like, what are the old age issues? Okay, so because this is also important. Okay, because they help us. Okay, they help every house. Okay, their children as well as grandchildren, uh, by coping with all these issues. Okay, uh, they have financial insecurity issues, retirement, financial problems, or income deficiency. They are depend on others. Some days they'll be facing dishonoring, or we handle very carelessly sometimes. And unfortunately, some days they face abuse and humiliation. Even if they have property, some days there will be so much of issues they face, okay, when the property is handing over to the next generation, and they have economic insecurity, and nobody is there to look after sometimes. And if in such case, okay, we have to think about that they may not be getting nutritious food, and sometimes even they may not be having daily food also. So these are some, okay, why they are going for a job, okay, or why they are employing, okay, the reason we can look at. And another thing, if you look at, okay, the mental and physical issues, okay, they're going through, okay, because we know that, okay, aging is a, okay, it is a decline of health and the need of mental support. And aging, in fact, defined as the decline of functional capability of body and mind. So decline of functionality, because it is very much visible, okay, when the functionality of sense organs, hearing and eyesight, those things will have problems, and they need to spend money for its such such things, okay, and they'll have fear and anxiety also, and the denial of food and medicines sometimes, maybe due to the carelessness, or maybe that the home and the house may not have much economically sufficient to do such things. And we sometimes may not be socializing with them, so they may feel loneliness, because we are busy with our work, and so they are social, sometimes they are socially isolated, especially in a especially when an isolated a home or sometimes like that. And they are psychologically down also. They may feel uncomfort socializing, so they may, or we may not be taking them for travel or maybe tour or like that, so they may get very less opportunities to socializing, and less recreation. And moreover, they will be having very much upset when they lose hold on their sons and daughters. So these are some issues they face every day. Now let us look at our time use survey, and that, and based on this, how much time they are spending. Okay, based on that, let us that we will have this all these things in mind, that they have these sort of problems, and in spite of that, they are spending time. Okay. So households from urban and rural areas are selected by this, the time use survey, and they have collected information, okay, for a period of 24 hours, and it is written as 4 a.m. on the day before the day of interview to the 4 a.m. of on the day of the interview. A total of 1,440 minutes of a day per person is considered. And 9 major divisions of the TUS activity classifications are considered in this survey, that is employment and related activities, production of goods for own final use, unpaid domestic service for household members, unpaid caregiving services for household members, unpaid volunteer, trainee and other unpaid work, learning, socializing and communication, community participation and religious practice, culture, leisure, mass media and sports practices, and self-care and maintenance. So these are some these are the categories survey has taken to consider how the time is spent on various activities. Okay. So let us think about juniors versus seniors, okay? How they spend time, okay? Going through the report of the survey, one can observe that the variable age is classified into three classes, in which one is overlapping. That is ages 15 to 29, 15 to 59, and the age over 60. So because of this one, okay, I felt interest, okay, to compare the activities of the age group 15 to 59 and the age above 60, because one group is, okay, mainly do earning activities as well as supporting activities in a household. That they are in general healthy adult group in the age of full capacity, the full functioning of their body and mind. And the other is a group of seniors who manage all the aging related issues, still supporting the household activities and even earning also. So let us have a look at the descriptive statistics plan in the report. So let us let us look at how juniors were seniors in spending time effectively. These are some interesting photographs I collected from the website only. And now this is a report. This is based on the report. Let us glance through the chapter 3 of the report. That means statement 9 and 10. I picked up men of age 15 to 59 and above 60. Okay, and women of the same age group also. So there are four bars you can see in the cluster bars, and various activities that the activities given in the TU survey we compared. And if you look at see every second and bar is for the an age group of capacity, and sorry, every first bar, the first bar and the third bar are about the full capacity age group, and the second and the fourth bar, that every even bar is about telling about how the seniors are doing. And we can see they are doing almost nearer, they spend almost time spent, okay, or on an average almost nearer to an adult, okay, having good capacity, physical capacity. And even for the and it is, if you look at, okay, sometimes the unpaid domestic services, okay, they do more, and caregiving also they do more hours, okay, compared to the adult actually. And another interesting thing is, okay, something different compared to the adult under the age, old age people, okay, they are more interested to do the socializing and the cultural and leisure activities. And self-maintenance also, okay, if you look at that, it shows the huge bars are the height of the bars are high, because, okay, everybody have to do self-care. And the you look at the orange color and yellow color bars, okay, which represents the old age people, they need to maintain, okay, more, because they are their body functionalities, they may be under medication, their body functionalities are less, so they need to spend more time to look after them. So that means a senior citizen spend time almost nearer to that of the young adult in the house. A group belong to their sons or daughters or grandchildren of the family. Old men and women are spending time working hard for earning, Apart from that, they help household works, volunteer and training work, that too almost equal to their counterparts, young adults. They take care of other members of the family more than compared to their counterparts. In fact, they also need care that we forget sometimes. Self-care and maintenance they do more as their health conditions demand it. I wonder whether it is a retiring age or retiring by working again for the family. This is okay. This is also about just to go through that descriptive analysis. I told you a positive part in the with the senior citizen is that they are socializing and communication, participation in culture and leisure activities are a bit more than compared to the young adults, especially women aged more than 60. This thing is based on the both rural and urban area data. And let us consider some more a little more deeper into that is based on the statements 25 on the time use survey. That means time spent for paid and unpaid activities by the adult and the seniors. If you look at for the men and women, if you look at average time spent in a rural and average time spent in urban, sorry, are given. Okay, you can see see above age 60 men and above age 60 women. Okay, they are also spending a good number of time. Okay, especially urban, if you look at, okay, women, okay, women having above age, okay, 60, they are spending more time for unpaid activities. Paid activities and unpaid activities, if you look at, okay, in the urban rural sector, okay, paid activities they are spending more time. And based on the statement 34 on time spent for system of national accounts, the SNA production and non-SNA production, if you look at, and the rural men and women, that means adult and seniors, if you look at, okay, see the time in minutes, okay. If you look at in rural India, the time in minutes spent by the senior citizens are nearer to younger adult. Aged females are also spending time. Female time contribution to non-SNA are more, and time contribution to males to SNA production are more. So this is for the based on the urban, okay, based on the statement 34 on the time use survey for the national NSA and production on non-NSA activities. Senior citizens spending remarkable time in both SNA and non-SNA production compared to time spent by young adults in the urban area. Female time contribution to non-SNA are more. Time contribution to males to SNA production are more. If we look back to the reality on life expectancy of Indian citizen, it is clear that there is no rest for our seniors. Even after getting older, okay, they are not getting rest. Let us connect the definition of the senior age. Okay, in the time use survey, just divided as just above age 60, and average life length of an Indian roughly 68. That is current life expectancy in India based on 2021. Okay, is 69.96. Okay, you can say roughly around 70. It is observed that they are contributing their time in par with the healthy adult in India. A complete retirement is not possible. That is what it says. They are spending their time not just for time pass, but for the but for necessity. A complete dependency is also not there. That is what it shows. It may happen that dependency will happen only if their physical and mental functionality are completely down. So we should give the reference to their contribution really. Their contribution need appreciation also by the government. They need support from the government for a complete retirement. I suppose how the people above age 60 in various states spend time based on statement 6.1. That's minutes spent in a day on an average per participants in the activities of major divisions of a TU's activity. I did a small cluster analysis. Cluster analysis, I'll tell a small description about the cluster analysis. It's for getting a small idea about what is a cluster analysis. Let us look at. It is an unsupervised learning technique. In a cluster analysis, data points are divided into different groups with some standard features. There are mainly two different types of clustering methods: hierarchical clustering and k-mean clustering, widely used. A hierarchical clustering starts with the n clusters and the aggregate data into k clusters based on the data point similarity. Similarity, how do they define? Similarity is defined based on the minimum distance between data points. Difference is defined based on maximum distance between the data points. K-mean clustering considers centroids and the number of classes is defined based on the iterative procedure. That's nearest to the centroid points are assigned to same category. In each iteration, average of all points attributed to that class is calculated and it will be a new centroid. When the centroid change in the location is less critical, the process ends. If you proceed without a prior belief and not know a number of clusters, okay, hierarchical will help a little more. Moreover, the dendrogram is easy to interpret. If we know specifically the number of clusters in the data set, we can go with the k-mean clustering. Moreover, for large number of data set, k-mean clustering is to be a little more faster. There can be more than one appropriate algorithm for every data set and a type of problems also. I have considered average time spent by senior citizens activities given according to the TUS. That means employment and related activities, socializing and the communication, community participation, learning, cultural leisure, mass media and sports activities, unpaid caring services for household members, unpaid volunteer training. And based on these activities of seniors, I try to cluster our states how rural senior females are clustered. Let us have this is a small diagram called a dendrogram, okay, which gives okay, how in general how many clusters are there. The membership of the clusters are the states are the members, okay, various states of the country, and you can see mainly one cluster, the second cluster, and a small third cluster also. I'm not going in detail of the statistical details and how this analysis and also because okay, we don't need those things for understanding seniors and their issues. Okay, and if you look at okay, the clusters, how they though we are considering almost six activities. Okay, the cluster for that means similarity of the states. Okay, is considered based on. Significantly based on the employment and related activities and socializing and communication activities and community participation and learning activities and unpaid volunteer training volunteer and training activities, and this is for the senior females. Actually, this one is given for senior females in the rural. Okay, so if you look at our states, you can categorize into three clusters. Okay, and I told you that in there are mainly okay the contribution for a separation, okay, by socializing and maybe and culture and leisure activities. If you look at unpaid voluntary and say learning activities and socializing and communication activities Okay, I told you in the beginning from the overall picture of the India. Okay, there itself we have seen that females are having more. Okay, they are spending more time for socializing also, and this cluster analysis also shows that. And if you look at the states, okay, the states are different in their culture also, and the way people socialize. See, for example, if you look at Chandigarh and Dadra Naga Haveli, like that, okay, Mizoram and Nagaland, Punjab, Rajasthan group, like that. Okay, we can understand that also. And the same work I did for rural senior male seniors, and there also we can see, though there are mainly two clusters, and you can see a small group also there. If you want to make it as a two cluster, that's fine. You can even make it, think about as a small third one also. And the same thing when I applied based on the 𝐴𝐚𝐴 cluster, there was only two clusters. Okay, but I didn't take that because that needs more technical explanation. So this is dendrogram is a very famous thing and everybody can understand. That is why I gone for a hierarchical clustering for the presentation. And if for the male, in what way the clusters okay differ in the male senior males? Okay, of course, employment and reflected activities, and socializing and the communication, and other thing is again culture and leisure activities, and unpaid and caring. Okay, then of course unpaid volunteer activities. uh, so this one also you can roughly classify it into two, and okay, a third small group was also there. So I thought, okay, that also I will consider. Even though the 𝐴𝐴 clustering was giving mainly two clusters. Okay, uh, now let us consider what were the rural senior female and males are mainly different in clustering states. So this is what I told you. The senior males, okay, employment and related activities, socializing and communication, community participation, culture and leisure, mass media and sports, unpaid caregiving services, unpaid voluntary training. All these things contributed for clustering in various states. But for the senior females, okay, employment and related activities, socializing and communications and community participation and learning are main factors for the clustering. Now let us finally let us think about, okay, in what way we need to support them. There are laws to support seniors, probably needed revisions. Okay. Government of India has to give more attention towards caring senior India. As a developing country with a life expectancy around age 69, it is important to classify working force between 60 to 70 and above 70 while deciding government policies to support its seniors. Probably next 2 years survey also probably this division should be included to get more light on the issues of seniors. The age 60 to 70 are employing to support not only to family but to meet their medical expenses definitely. So they are in need of government support, even though there are insurances. Probably they need more. The government should go ahead with the more policies supporting to the senior citizens. Thank you all for listeners. Thank you, NSO, for Thiruvananthapuram. If there is
You,
any,
Dr. Sindhu.
yes,
Yeah.
thank
In
you.
case anybody is having queries, because this is an interesting topic, interesting discussion, which we were not that familiar on the basis of time use survey. So in case anybody want to add, please take a minute or two. I think you all have enjoyed the interesting discussion you presented. The results seems very close to the reality that we see for our senior citizens. And also the suggestion regarding more age group wise classification is also welcome for us to when we take up the next surveys. So I would like to bring these points into the notice of SDRD, more age group classification for doing the analysis. At the time of analysis, it will be important. So I would like to thank you, Dr. Sindhu, for joining us.
Thank you, Sunita. Thank you, all listeners.
I would like to invite Sri 𝐴 𝐚𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐻N, Assistant Director, NSO RO Thiruvananthapuram, who will be presenting an insight on time use survey results in order to add to the discussions that we already had. Ganeshan sir, please.
Good evening. Good evening. Myself, 𝐴 𝐚𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐻N, Assistant Director at SRO RO Trivandrum. First of all, I thank you to our DDG Madam Sunita Bhaskar to give the opportunity to give the presentation. In insights, results on TUS results 2019. Major definitions and concepts already most of the scholars were explained very well. I am just showing some results of that. Estimates are referred to as average time spent in a day per participant in time slot. India participation rate in working activity for more than 6 years was 38.2%, and time was 429 minutes. This category was given in rural and urban as well as male and female separately given in our result. participation in products of goods and goods for own and final use, and time spent per participant given in 17.1%, and time used was 151 minutes. Similarly, it was divided into rural and urban and other categories. Unpaid members already explained by very well in other scholars. However, in India, participation rate in household members spent in India participation rate in 53.2%, and time disposed was 248 minutes. Participant in unpaid caregiving services for household members and time spent was 20.7%, and time spent was 114 minutes. In volunteers, 2.4% only, and time spent was 101 minutes. In socializing and communication, community participation and religious practices was 91.3%, and minutes was 143 minutes. In mass media, 86.9%, and time spent was nearly 3 hours. For self-care, it was 100% used by all persons, in male as well as female, in rural and urban. In learning, 85.9%. Minutes was 430 minutes. The unpaid activities again given. Whether the activities participated or not, the time was calculated. SNA production, and it was already explained by Subhas and others. This was ninefold activities: employment related activities, production, unpaid caregiving activities, learning, socializing, culture, self-care, in rural and urban, male and female. The total percentage was given. Different activity in a day, it was given in the tabular form. It was also time. This was some comparison given in the results. Percentage of persons participating in employment, male is 38.9% more than female. Huge impact. Percentage of persons participating in production of goods for own use, female is 5.7% more than male. Here, female members are giving more work in that own production work. Percentage of person participating in unpaid domestic duties, female members are 51% more than male. Very huge impact. Average of 202 minutes. Average of 202 minutes. High in female than male, almost triple times. Female members are working in household domestic duties. Similarly, caregiving Female members are 13.6% more than male. Huge impact. Very average time 58 minutes high in female than male members. Here they are working more than double times. Percentage of persons participating in volunteers, male is 0.7% than male. Female average time only 3 minutes high in male than female. For volunteer work almost equally same. Percentage of person participating in learning, male member is 4.1% than female. Average time only 3 minutes high than male member in female. Male and female persons in in communication are almost the same. Average time only 8 minutes higher in male than female. Participating in culture, male is 3.2% than female. Average time only 1 minute high in female than male. Percentage of self-care, it was 100% equal in male as well as female. In some conclusion, in employment and related activities, urban male having 40.8% of persons more than rural female. Rural female having 21.6% of persons more than urban male in producing goods for own use. In unpaid domestic service, rural as well as urban female persons are more dominant than male, almost triple times. In unpaid caregiving, same as in household members of rural as well as rural and female, rural as well as urban, both female and male are same. Female members are double times than rural in urban. Volunteers and trainee and community participation for male and female are same. The learning are same. Inverse relation between age and amount of time spent by women in domestic duties, whereas men facing the direct relations. If age is increasing, the women are somewhat reducing their domestic duties. At the same time, male members are increasing their domestic duties in increasing the age. After 60 years, male members are doing more work in domestic duties. And in production of goods for an use is less than, own use is less than 1%, that is 3%, 0.3% in urban and 2.4% in rural. These are some conclusions. It may be used for many purposes and many users. We can plan our time in utilizing our office work as well as our house domestic work also. Then we will increase our our good health for us as our spouse. It is humble request. Every male member must cooperate with their female members and do their sharing their work in all types of categories. Prosperity in our life. Thank you once again. I thank you, madam, and all members to give the opportunity to present the small presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ganeshan sir. for presenting the important time use survey results at all India level, and also giving us practical hints how we can improve our life on the basis of the results that we have discussed here today. Let me share with you that for Ganeshan sir, this is a last minute request from my side, as the other person who was representing NSO, that Dr. Rashmi could not join us. So Ganeshan sir took the task, and based on his extensive experience in NSO, he took it as a challenge and came up with the quick presentation. So I would like to thank you, sir, for representing NSO RO in this webinar. So I think in case anybody want to add to the discussions, we can have some discussion queries. I would like to request Mohanan sir, please join us for the concluding remarks. Mohanan sir was there in the beginning. I think right now he is, sir is there, sir, Mohanan sir. Okay, then I would like to request any of our officers joined us from various offices. Headquarter is also there, zonal office is also there, to have some concluding remarks. Sorry, we had some network issues. So we are concluding this program today. We had extensive discussions on the time use survey report of 2019. We could see it from looking at the important results, the methodology we adopted for the survey, and the suggestions we had for improving future surveys. So let us go to the final task, vote of thanks. I would like to request Sri P. Santosh, Senior Statistical Officer, NSRO in charge, RO Trivandrum, for proposing vote of thanks.
Thank you, madam. I think I am audible and viewable to everybody present right there. So we are in the stroke of lunch break. So let me wind up the vote of thanks with crisp words of gratitude from RO Trivandrum. First of all, let me express our sincere gratitude to MOSPI, that is our ministry, as well as the FOD headquarters, who have accorded permission to conduct such a grand proceeding, and that too at an innovative atmosphere of 𝐶DIT, which has given green signal for hosting the occasion. So let me express our sincere thanks to the ministry as well as FOD headquarters to have this function conducted that is sweetly timed in the stroke of our 70th year of national independence, our Independence Day celebration, and particularly yesterday we had the 73rd anniversary of Republic Day also. So it's a sweet coincidence that we are given such a chance. So all the concerned officers at headquarters, zonal level, and every group members associated with this task, I should express our sincere thanks from out of the heart on behalf of RO Trivandrum. Then let me, as per the proceedings, let me go by one so that it will be a poetical justice to all who has concerned to have graced the occasion. And in this context, Dr. Bivas Chowdhury, sir, ADG, respected ADG FOD, for having that opening message, very, very suitable message and apt way in which he has conveyed the task of the day. So let me express our sincere gratitude to him on behalf of RO Trivandrum. Then I should thank Dr. Sunil Mani, Director and RBI Professor, Center for Development Studies, that is CDS. And he has been always associated with us in all our endeavors. So let me express sincere thanks on behalf of RO Trivandrum for having that inaugural session addressed by him. Thank you, sir. And regarding, then we had a very good clipping on the NSO activities. I think I should thank our dear respected DDG Trivandrum, Sunita Bhaskar madam, for having arranged single-handed, almost single-handedly she has managed the thing. Yesterday we had the heat of the moment. We had experienced that. Yesterday night, she had a sleepless night, it seems, but she has wonderfully managed things single-handedly. And through that clippings, each and every staff of NSO, their activities were captured in a very nice manner, scheme-wise also. So special kudos to you, madam. Thank you. Then, even though she is a part of our fraternity, we should have that poetical justice on her also. And in this context, I should thank Dr. Rashmi madam also. Actually, she is the host today for this program, today's program. Even though her physical presence is not here, she has done yeoman service in the smooth conduct of this program. And consequently, I can say a couple of words on the smooth conduct of this program, that without the service of 𝐶DIT, that the whole crew present here, I should thank everybody, each and every individual, from the technical heads and all staff, crew people. Even though in between some last minute hiccup was there, still they managed the show. So I should thank them all on behalf of RO Trivandrum. Thank you, everybody. Without your support, we could not have achieved such a mammoth task. So thank you all. And Then coming back to the session, we should extend our sincere thanks to our colleague Subhash, Dr. Subhash. Subhash he is a SSO working at Kollam. He has given a very good, interesting session on the relevance of TSU. Actually, the whole thing depends upon our previous survey of time use survey, the results of which was beautifully unfolded by our resource persons. And Subhash, I should thank him. I express my sincere gratitude to Subhash on behalf of 𝐴𝐸 Trivandrum. He is our own man, but still. Then coming back, Sri Sandeep Kumar Sadhu, he is Deputy Director SDRD. Sir, it was very interesting to hear your words of wisdom on the unpaid activities in India, the results from the TSU.
Thank you.
Time use, TUS, we call it TUS. So that was very well dealt by you, sir, and we were indebted to you. I express our sincere thanks on behalf of 𝐴𝐸 Trivandrum. Then coming back to the next program was session was handled effectively by Professor Neeta and as well as Dr. Sri Rupa. They jointly conducted the session in a very informative manner, analyzing the different conceptual and methodological issues in estimating unpaid. It is a very relevant topic, unpaid, domestic wives work, all those things they dealt beautifully in a very thoughtful, thought-provoking manner, so that our people have conducted the survey. We now have the highlights of the flashbacks of the survey. So it was a very informative session. We all thank both of you on behalf of 𝐴𝐸 Trivandrum. Then coming back, we had the very interesting, one of the most interesting as well as retiring. That word, I should repeat the retiring word, very informatively and humorously addressed by Dr. Sindhu Mol. Madam, we especially thank you because it was a very interesting, nobody has dealt focused on that corner. That is senior citizens or Indian senior citizens getting rest and relaxation. It was very well taken. I sincerely expressed our heartfelt gratitude on behalf of 𝐴𝐸 Trivandrum. Superbly taken.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And all the best also to all resource persons. Then coming back, we had our own in-house resource person. And Neeta as well as Sri Dr. And very sorry, I should add one more very well taken session by Sri Nirke Srinivasa Vijay DD and also 𝐴𝐸 Pune, and it was very well taken. That is gender parity. That is the most important aspect. Very current relevance it has got. So he has taken very well that gender parity in work for home among Indian households. That is a deeper insight on that. So we especially feel very much delighted to have that topic, because we had in the field, we have experienced the heat of the survey. That is senior citizens problems, all those things. Age-wise, it was demographic classification. We have practically experienced. So thank you, sir, for having a very deeper insight on the topic. I express my sincere as well as our sincere gratitude to you on behalf of 𝐴𝐸 Trivandrum to have taken such a painstaking effort in delivering such a topic. It is a very unique subject. Thank you, sir. Then coming back, I should thank our personal man Ganeshan sir, who has got hardly 3 months time left for the twilight of his career. He has accepted the challenge of 11th hour assignment, but he has done marvelously well in taking that subject to within the time strain. He has completed the whole thing. That is based on his rich experience, as madam has told. So, sir, I should express sincere thanks to Sri Ganeshan sir on behalf of 𝐴𝐸 Trivandrum. And finally, all the officers of CDIT, technical crew, and always on along with that, it was a hybrid session. So I should thank all those people who are available in the online session, right from the representatives from DES, our ROs, zonal offices, zonal office as well as FOD headquarters, all officers, those who are attending the session in a creative manner with the suggestions also from many corners. So I should thank all of them on behalf of Regional Office Trivandrum to have graced the occasion, not physically, but through online stream, live stream. And it is recorded for posterity to see the whole proceedings. We can all be proud of being a part of this fraternity. We can see at any time at the fingertips. We can click the button and we can see the whole proceedings, what has happened here. It's a unique session. So let me, in this national patriotic context of the day and the situation, let me express our sincere gratitude on behalf of Regional Office Trivandrum for all those people, for all those minds united together to have such a wonderful session, fruitful session to have presented before the national interest or a national importance evoking occasion. So thank you everybody for having this session attended, as well as our gratitude to one and each people of the whole production procedure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Let us close the event with national anthem. I request all of you to stand up for national anthem. The webinar is ended. Thank you all.